Good day, Brother Paradise.
Oh, good afternoon.
Yes. Well, certainly, I and the New Kai chapter, we thank you for providing us with an opportunity to interview you.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Well, as the New Kai graduate chapter reflects on its place in the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, we must pay homage to our illustrious founders, Dr. Ernest Just, Bishop Edgar Love, Dr. Oscar Cooper, and Professor Frank Coleman. But we also must herald adulation for the forward-thinking local founders of our esteemed New Kai graduate chapter. Now, in the course of this interview, a series of questions are going to be posed to you in order to delve into the memories as well as the perspectives of our local founders. So with this said, once you share your questions, I may ask you some follow-up questions, but certainly we will get a totality of all that was involved in the making of the New Kai graduate chapter.
Good.
A good place for us to start is to reflect on your origins. So when we think of you as an undergraduate, in what year and at what university did you become a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated?
I attended what was at that time the University of Arkansas, which was AM&N College at Pine Bluff, which subsequently became what we call UAPB. That was in 1950. And I was on campus there for the 4 years. And as a result, in my sophomore year, I pledged, which was 1952.
Okay.
And I thought that that was the chapter for me to attend and be a part of. And I think that subsequently it enhanced my well-being as a student there.
Okay. Well, certainly, your membership in the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated as an undergrad set the tone for what would later become our reason for this interview. Now, I am curious, at UAPB, when you joined the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, what was your motivation for joining the organization?
I think that as a result of having been on campus for a short period of time, I looked around and that was the chapter where I saw more friendship. And I saw guys who I thought were very dynamic, and they were about leadership on campus. And that was something that I wanted to identify with at that time.
Brother Paradise, when we think about organizational origins, there always seems to be a pattern. The need for the organization precedes the creation of the organization. So with that in mind, would you describe some of the factors, the issues that were prevalent at the time that the chartering of the New Kai graduate chapter was being considered, as well as when it came to be?
As I reflect on that period of time, I had just returned to the area from my graduation, and thinking in terms of that, we were looking around for something to do. And as a result, we were enjoying the Metro East area again. And we had guys who were in town who had come from schools all over the Midwest, and we would party and we would go to socials and football games, and as a result we got to know each other better, and we thought that we would like to find some way of socializing on an ongoing basis. And that was the basis for our getting together.
So when we think about the chartering of the New Chi graduate chapter, it's always important to think about the pioneers, the people who set forward first. How many chapter founders chartered the New Chi chapter? And when you share that number, would you then follow up with sharing the names of the other founders of the New Chi chapter?
We had approximately 14 brothers at that time that we were interacting with. And as I recall, there were guys from the U of I, Otis D. Morgan, and he was one of the prime movers in our getting together, along with James Grady. You remember Mr. Grady, who is, I think, was instrumental in establishing the teachers' union. He was very active at that time, also along with Hollis Dozier. Hollis Dozier probably was in the chapter at the time that you were a participant. And Merrill Overall, and Robert Bonner was also one of the members, along with Laverne Crawford, and we call him affectionately Nubby Crawford, and David Brown Jr., and Boyd Jackson was a coach in the area at the time, and he was like an advisor to the group. And Harold Bearfield and Carlos Glenn, that we call Giovanni. That was essentially the group that we started with, and I think most of them were the ones who were on the application for the charter.
Well, Brother Paradise, as you have named the founders of the New Chi graduate chapter, certainly there are 3 P's that come to mind. One certainly would be pioneers, as I mentioned earlier. The other, I would say, would be pioneers that have a passion. And then that third P certainly would be wanting to inspire participation among all of the brethren of Omega who were in the area from the undergrad chapters. Now, what that brings to mind is answering a call. So that is the theme around my next question to you. As a seasoned adult, as the seasoned adults that you just named as our founding charter members, what do you believe persuaded you to join the other chapter founders in order to charter the New Chi chapter?
I kind of feel it's ironic that it was, in my opinion, friendship. And as you will reflect, friendship is essential to the soul, is our motto. And at that point, it was a matter of friendship, because that was what drew us together, and that was what provided the basis for our socialization at that time.
That certainly is an inspirational response. Now, when we think about friendship being essential to the soul, it is a vital area of life. So just as in life, there are challenges that we must contend with. There are good points of life that we must contend with. My next question deals with more of the challenge aspect. Would you share and elaborate on any challenge that the chapter founders had to overcome in order to charter the New Chi Graduate Chapter?
Offhand, I can't think of any challenge other than for some of the younger brothers. We were just out of college and we were seeking employment. So I guess if there was a challenge, I would probably say a lack of finance. Aside from that, I can't think of any offhand.
Well, Brother Paradise, lack of finance is a big aspect for any potential organization. So let's stay with that for just one quick second. When we talk about the challenge of finances for the young brothers who are seeking to found or charter the New Chi chapter, how did they overcome this obstacle in order for New Chi to become a reality?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question because it ties in with the whole concept for which we ultimately were chartered. The older brothers, recognizing the younger brothers' financial deficiency, decided to let us, as younger brothers who were unemployed at that time, come in for 1/2 of the total charge that they were charging the brothers who were more established. And I thought that that was a matter of fraternity and a matter of concern and a matter of interest. And I think that that was a sealant that ultimately made us come together as a viable group.
Certainly, Brother Paradise, having the younger brothers come in for half the cost certainly is a sign of consideration by the elders that were seeking to form the chapter. And it also is a great example of friendship, of a relationship that you all are trying to forge. Now, with that said, we now come to the grand question, at least one of the grand questions here, that have to do with the ultimate chartering of the New Chi Graduate Chapter. On what date was the New Chi Graduate Chapter chartered? And why was this date selected as opposed to any other date?
I'm not sure, and I would probably have to look that up. And offhand, I don't know of any particular significance I would assign to a particular date, but I did look, and I did not. That was one of the few questions that I was unable to find.
Well, I tell you, Brother Paradise, there's one thing that we can be certain of, that the chartering did occur.
Oh.
And you're certainly all the better because of it.
I agree. I concur.
Now, as we transition to the next question, there are 3 L's that come to mind that really serve as the key point for the establishment of any entity. Location, location, location. So in what city and in what local institution did the chartering of the New Chi Graduate Chapter occur?
The chartering occurred in East St. Louis primarily because that was the location of most of the brothers that were applicants. And the installation occurred at Pilgrim Temple CME Church. And it was probably because of some of the brothers' association with that institution.
Well, Brother Paradise, when we think of the New Chi chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, we certainly have to consider the other Black Greek organizations that are in existence, and even those that were in existence at the time of our chapter's chartering. How did the chartering of the Nu Chi graduate chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated differ from the chartering of any of the other Black Greek fraternity graduate chapters in the East St. Louis area in that particular era?
It's my opinion that we were unique primarily because we were not a homogeneous group of older, established people at that time, like many of the other graduate chapters that existed in the city. We were a hodgepodge of older and younger and in between, established and non-established, and I felt we were unique in as much as we were able to come together and find commonality that permitted us to socialize and have a good time, and that was our in my thinking, our uniqueness.
And of course, Brother Paradise, when we think of the creation of any organization, it's very different from the acceptance of that organization by similar parties or groups. So that leads to my next point. When we think about the acceptance of the early Nu Chi graduate chapter by the other Black Greek fraternity and sorority graduate chapters of East St. Louis, how would you describe the type of acceptance, the level of acceptance of Nu Chi with these other groups?
In my opinion, we were well accepted primarily because of our attitude and our willingness to come in and work. And we fitted within the group very well because subsequent to our joining the participation at that time, many of us found acceptance in roles of leadership in groups like the Divine Nine.
Well, thank you very much for that answer, Brother Paradise. Thus far, we've hit on the creation of the Nu Chi chapter. We've talked a bit about the acceptance of the Nu Chi chapter, but I'm very curious about the growth and the membership of the early Nu Chi chapter. Following approval of its charter, what philosophies or strategies were employed to build the membership of the Nu Chi graduate chapter?
We, as a group, brought with us our mates. And our mates, I think, had a great deal to do with what occurred at that point. And we, in my opinion, shared our friendship, which spilled over in our socialization. And we used to go to Otis Morgan's house. He was our first bosselist. We'd go to his house and we would have parties. And we enjoyed ourselves. And our mates would put things on the wall. We would dance. We had a wonderful time until Otis Morgan's basement became a rascala. And when his basement became a rascala and it was beautified and upgraded, and then the socialization reduced.
Oh my. When we think of what you just shared about, I'm going to use your word, the Rathskeller, that certainly provides just one of many fond memories, I'm sure, of the early days of the New Kai chapter. The next question really ties in the past work of the early New Kai chapter, and it mingles it with the present day New Kai chapter. So when you think about an accomplishment or accomplishments of the early New Kai chapter, pinpoint one or two, and then share with us what accomplishments of the early New Kai chapter is still being championed and acted upon by the present day chapter.
In my opinion, community organization and competition were the factors that I found most outstanding initially, and in my opinion continue now, inasmuch as New Kai has been chosen within our fraternity as the largest, one of the top chapter for community organization and socialization. And I think that early on, we had a sense of community and community service, and that continues now. And I think it has been enhanced by the caliber of brothers who have become participants in New Kai chapter. Some of them come from their service work with a commitment to doing community service, and their skill and participation, I feel, has made New Kai unique and outstanding in that regard.
Brother Paradise, you mentioned just now the word commitment in your previous answer. So when we talk about commitment, certainly leadership of an organization, leadership of the New Kai chapter is significant. Would you share with us any elected or appointed chapter offices that you held and compare the duties assigned to you to those offices to a comparable position in our present day chapter?
I was initially the chaplain. I didn't necessarily feel that I was most qualified for that position, but I was chosen, and I served as the first chaplain. And as a result of my long tenure with the Brotherhood and as a participant, I was bossless twice, and as the bossless, I got a chance to set the tone for some of our participation over time. And my interest primarily is in community uplift and wanting to see some means of our doing something that would be helpful to uplifting the citizenry in East St. Louis. And so I found that as a result, I got a chance in those positions that I did hold to do a lot of community service.
Well, Brother Paradise, you mentioned about community service being a passion, a desire, as you moved into leadership of the New Kai chapter. When we think about leadership, among our chapter, among our Black Greek organization, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, my mind goes to the other 8 Black Greek fraternities and sororities, and how significant Omega was for the creation of the Pan-Hellenic Council. Did you have any leadership or any activity when it came to the Pan-Hellenic Council in those early days of the Nu Chi chapter?
As a representative of Nu Chi chapter, I was also the president of the Pan-Atlantic Council early on. And the Pan-Atlantic Council was very, very interested in doing whatever we could to also uplift the community. But I was also concerned at that time about the outflow of our finances to downtown agencies for dances and things of that nature. And I made a pitch at one point to eliminate our formal dances and whatnot, which caused a greater outflow of our finances and so on and so forth. And we did discuss that within the Divine Nine, but we found that as a result of our organizational differences and structures, that was not possible. But I thought that things like that would be a means of our chapters diverting some of our financial to things that we could better serve the community.
Certainly, Brother Paradise, change is always in the air. It's always in the air in one's life. It's always in the air in the life of an organization. How has the Nu Chi chapter changed since its inception?
Initially, our wives and sweethearts played a big role in our socialization. And as a result, they established a companion organization called the Qets. The Qets initially worked very hard along with all the brothers to do whatever was necessary for us to generate funding, to provide services in the community, and just to have a good time on all kinds of trips. We went to Big Ten football games. We went down to Carbondale to football games. We went over to to take in all kinds of the shows at the Black Rep, and we just had a wonderful time. But much of that, I think, was encouraged and assisted by our wives and sweethearts.
Certainly, the presence of the Qets is a change because it's not currently a component of the current chapter. However, that socialization factor certainly has carried over. So along those lines, we looked at the side of the coin that has to do with how the chapter has changed. But let's flip that coin over, and let's hear from you as it relates to how you believe the Nu Chi chapter has remained the same since its inception.
I think that Nu Chi was benefited by having Scott Air Force Base in our midst. And we received a steady infusion of membership of brothers from Scott. And they brought with them a lot of ideas that we felt enhance what the brothers who were trying to do things that were significant in the community were about at the time. And I think that that continues now. That, along with the fact that we had some very aggressive brothers who had a lot of interest in becoming a part of the leadership in the community, a part of that talented 10th. And we also had an interest in youth and youth programming. And all of that, I think, was conducive to what we thought we wanted to engage in and at that time. And I think that that was for the betterment of the community as well as New Guy Chapter.
Of course, Brother Paradise, your opinion and your perspective carries a lot of weight in present-day New Chi. So with that said, my next point to you really deals with your perspective and opinion as it relates to the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated as a central organization. Would you name one strength of the present-day Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated that you believe will enable it to endure and progress?
I think that the New Guy Chapter consists of truly men of quality who have all kinds of skills that are needed in an area such as East St. Louis and surrounding areas. I feel that that talented 10th could muster its resources and contacts to do all kinds of things, to suggest and provide the kind of direction that is essential to the kind of development that we would want in the area. I'm thinking in terms of downtown St. Louis, the Metro East portion that is East St. Louis is closer than a lot of the St. Louis County. And if people who had ideas and whatnot could come together and pool those resources, it's all kinds of things and all kinds of projects that I think could bear fruit. And we could have something like spin-off projects and whatnot that could be developed and conceived of by the membership and whatnot, if they have that kind of interest and commitment. And that is what I would see as a possibility.
Well, Brother Paradise, I like how you intertwined the talent of the New Chi chapter as a springboard for the strength of the overall international Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. My next point that I really am interested in your opinion has to do with not the strength, which we have already covered, but it has to do with the challenge of the present day Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Would you name for us one challenge of the present day Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated that you believe should be altered in order to maximize its full potential?
I think that we should probably be more mindful of the selection of our new membership. I know it's inevitable that people want to bring their friends along with them, but a lot of times that may become a fatal flaw if you're about doing a lot of the heavy lifting that is necessary to upgrade the services and programming that currently exists in the area. And I would think that some of that is being altered now by the liability that comes along with not doing the necessary screening to get the best in membership. And I think that aside from that, I think we're pretty much on course. I think we're doing quite well.
My next question to you has very much to do with reminiscing from whence the chapter has come. But it also has a twist to it because it has applications for what we are doing as a chapter today. If you could return in time to the days and the months prior to the chartering of the New Chi chapter and offer some insightful words to all of the past chapter founders and all of the other Omega brothers that have gone on before us, what would those words or that message be to the brethren?
It may sound humorous, and but you know, when I was on campus, one of the things I liked about our undergrad chapter was the fact that we used to serenade the female dormitories. We would serenade. We would go down, and after socializing at one of the local establishments, we would line up and march out on campus and serenade. And to make a long story short, one of the things that I always recall is one of the songs we would sing. We would have one guy stand out and says, "Oh, ring them bells," on whatever the location and so on and so forth. And it would go on, and then they said, Omega, Psi Phi, whatever chapter or whatnot, has brought the best of the best. And I think about that frequently. And I think that's applicable to what I feel for New Chi now, then, and in the future. I think the New Chi, oh, ring them bells, New Chi chapter has brought the best of the best home to whatever place we are at that time.
We talked early on in the interview about our illustrious founders. And I would be remiss if I didn't pose this question to you, Brother Paradise. Did you ever have an opportunity to meet any of the founding fathers of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated? And if so, would you describe what happened and which founders, if not all founders, that you met?
It's ironic that you were asked that question. I never met any of the founders, but I always thought I would have liked to have met Brother Ernest E. Just. And my wife had aunts that lived on Cape Cod, and frequently we would pass a place that a book I read on the founder that I admired so much, Dr. Ernest E. Just. He studied at a location very near where I used to vacation. And I feel that a whole lot of the things that he did, I identify with.
So with Dr. Jest, one of our founders, being a source of inspiration for you, what do you really believe captures that inspiration from his life?
He was an inspiration to young men inasmuch as he was unique. He was an advisor to the other three founders, and as a result of his background, experience, and achievement, they were able to lay the foundation for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, which I feel has been established on firm ground. And that was what I was essentially thinking in terms of.
Well, Brother Paradise, it certainly has been an honor to interview you for this cause and to go with you on your journey as you reflect on the fond memories you had of the founding of our beloved chapter, the New Chi chapter. In fact, I would say that we talked about the founding fathers, but there's one founding father that comes to mind, and I believe you exemplify the words that he once said. And that founding father was Bishop Edgar A. Love. He once said that there may be room for mediocrity in society, but not in Omega. Your contribution and the other founders of our chapter's contribution to the New Chi chapter is something that we hold dear to our hearts. And certainly, I'm going to quote you now, Brother Paradise, in saying, "Oh, ring them bells," because certainly you are the best of the best. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I want to thank New Chi for being. This is an inspiration for me to continue on and to think in terms of doing more with what I've been blessed to have. And as a result of that, I thank all of the brotherhood for their encouragement so that I can feel that it's essential that I put forth the best that I can for the time that I have. And so I thank you all. And I say, continue to do all the good things that you do with what you have. Thank you very much.